All right, good morning. Hopefully everyone is in the meeting now. I want to introduce myself. My name is Eva Vanos. I work for BSCC, and today we'll be reviewing and discussing quarterly progress reports for ORT vertical prosecution. I will focus on the most common questions and concerns we noticed during our QPR review process. Our BSCC research team is also on the call to facilitate, Ashley and Earl. We also have our field rep Lonnie on the call. So feel free to chime in anytime, guys. We will be recording this meeting as a future resource. I hope everyone can see and hear me well. There's an agenda up on board, and hopefully I'm speaking loud enough. So I will begin with a quick summary of some common issues we encountered during our review. After that, we will review an example QPR together. We will close the meeting with an open discussion and to answer any questions answer any questions that are remaining. So to begin, I was just going to list some issues that came up and resulted in either follow-up communication or QPR revisions. One issue we encountered was using descriptions or statuses that were similar to the previous quarter. So we were hoping that if that is the case and there was little to no updates, that a sentence or two could be shared stating that that was the case, so we didn't have to confirm and lead to more follow-up. A second issue was sometimes there was no context for staff-related metrics or other staff positions. Another issue was the use of zeros, not applicable or other. So if there was no data to report for a reporting period, we recommend to just use a zero. If the data or metrics do not apply to your project activities, we recommended using NA. If other is used, we recommend providing an explanation, as our team will likely need more clarification. And also, we strongly discourage the use of blanks, especially in the data tables, as blanks indicate missing data, which we'd have to also follow up with you about. Our team may require follow-up communication to better understand the information that was reported in the QPRs, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that your data is wrong. We're just checking in. We don't know everything, so we're just asking for clarification. It is helpful to always provide us more information and context so we can understand what's reported, especially for those of you with caveats or unique situations for your project, to help streamline the review process. We will now review an example QPR document together. I will ask the group if they can identify any issues in the QPR before going over any examples together. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a document, and please feel free to ask questions or write in the chat. I know that my team will be looking at the chat, so I can be stopped at any time. So here everyone can see the QPR. And the first section is the definition of key terms. Now this section, I don't really have any examples to go over because we didn't have that many issues with this section. But just as a reminder, if there are any definitions that are different from the ones provided by BSCC, that you provide those in the text box, even if they are minor alterations. So are there any questions about this section A?
So this was a note that the Q2 date is incorrect, which is true. That is an error on our side, but that is definitely something to keep in mind when you're filling out your future QPRs.
Oh yeah, choosing the correct quarter was very helpful. Sorry about that mistake. I noticed that too. Alrighty, going to section B. Does anyone looking at this section, many might not be able to see this, but is there anything that you see that might be an issue in any of these? So I'm going to go ahead and just say something we noticed in this sort of example, because it's not very obvious. So for number 2, the staffing, there's not information about who was hired or the reporting period that it transpired. So that's an issue. And just a general reminder to utilize the definitions at the top here and determine which status is most applicable to your project for the respective reporting period. If the status and description are similar, that's okay. Just let us know. Again. So moving on to section C, goals. And anyone have any questions for that section? Sorry.
No, but just so one of the big reasons why we're doing this is we know and want to respect everybody's time, and hoping to eliminate some of the questions that we have or needing for clarification. So the detail that you provide, which has been great so far, but sometimes we just want to make sure we're interpreting correctly. So that's why we're doing this, to kind of make sure that everyone's on the same page, and then cutting down the questions to eliminate taking up your time, and then also allowing us to process this as quickly as possible, because we are still being requested of the governor's office to produce reports, and then eventually a dashboard will be published. So just some further context, but we really appreciate anything you all could add to this conversation.
I have a question. Would you prefer us to ask it out loud or to ask in the chat?
Out loud is totally fine.
Perfect. So in any category where the description has not changed, and you all indicate if something is the same or hasn't changed to let you know, where would you like us to indicate that information?
I think in just in the body of the text, I mean, we often just ask in case maybe a section was missed when filling it out, or a previous QPR was used, and just want to make sure it wasn't overlooked. So that's all.
Yeah. So like, for example, if the same training was maintained across, say, Q3 and Q4, and the narrative wasn't technically changing between 3 and 4, when you submit Q4, say, the same narrative, and say this is an ongoing process that has continued from Q3, so that we recognize that you've acknowledged that it's changed and it's not just a holdover. Because we've had other grantees and other grants where they just try to say the same thing over and over again, but we want to make sure that we, as well as Lonnie, is understanding how the project evolves over time. So that's the context, but thank you, Kamarga.
Yes. And in addition to that, for any statuses that are marked as complete and established, you may keep the description the same, as the status does indicate that it is complete. However, if there are any changes to that activity item, we would like a status change and description, just to help us understand what had transpired.
Thank you guys for the details for that section. For section C, goals and objectives, we're going to just go down to goal number 2. If anyone notices any issues with this goal, feel free to speak up. So for goal number 2, we see that there's no updates for the progress of the goal. There's no description provided, or challenges or how they were addressed. So again, if there hasn't been a whole lot of progress, that is okay too. But please just share that information with us. So that was just a simple example of the same sort of situation. As we would expect everyone to, have some sort of a challenge for each goal, typically. Did anyone have any questions for this section?
No, Adriana pointed out the issue that you mentioned. Adriana, sorry.
Right. Alrighty. And section D is the staffing table. Does anyone see any potential issues with section D? So if for this section, if there's any numerical values that apply to row C, the number of FTE other staff positions assigned to ORT cases, we would love to have a description in this text box to speak to the staff that are working on that. So as a reminder, apart from deputy district attorneys and district attorney investigators, other staff may include and are not limited to paralegals, legal assistants, law clerks, or legal interns, providing direct or case legal support for ORT cases. And of course, when reporting FTE, include any staff assigned to the grant. This would be anyone that is assigned full-time or even part-time to grant related activities. So that's just a reminder for that section. Does anyone have any questions for the data reporting for staffing in section D?
Nothing in chat. We don't have anything in chat.
Okay, I'll just move along. We can also ask everyone for questions at the end as well. For section E metrics, we would typically expect to see cases filed and convictions for both VP and non-VP. And also we may expect to see some cases and convictions as a subset of non-VP. While this may or may not always be the case, again, providing some context is helpful. So moving on to the second table here, does anyone see any issues with the way the data is reported here?
So Renee is saying empty cells.
Yes, so if you look at the second table, sentencing for people convicted of an ORT charge, the values for rows 12, 14, 15, and 16 have blanks. The totals also do not match across the three tables. So here are the totals for this table and this table. They don't match, as well as E10 above. Well, these two match, but the one in the middle doesn't. And then also the numbers in the VP column of the sentence table do not add up to 4. So we're not sure if something is missing because all of these are not filled in with zeros. So we would have to essentially follow up. Now, sometimes I know things don't always line up perfectly, but again, that's why we prefer a lot of context for this section. So we would love to have 19 essentially always filled out where we have some context to speak to all the reported data above. Because I know that everyone has a little bit of different situation sometimes, so that's what I wanted to share for that section. And number 19 can be used to clarify any discrepancies across the tables, whether there were any cases filed that had multiple defendants or defendants that had multiple cases filed against them, for instance. So all of that really helps because we are not the SMEs on this data. So does anyone else have any questions for this section?
So is it, Kamaria asks, is it necessary to include text for number 19 if there is no clarification needed?
I guess Ashley can answer that. I would say sometimes I feel as though there's always context because sometimes maybe to us, but maybe not to you. What do you think about that, Ashley?
I think it's context dependent. So if all your numbers match up, like the totals, and it's nice and neat in a perfect world, right? And like 4 people got sentenced and they all were convicted in the same quarter, and there wasn't any kind of oddities about those things, then I would say that there probably isn't necessarily context that we need to be provided that hasn't probably already been documented above in the program progress. Excuse me. So yeah, I don't think we would necessarily kick it back to you, but we may still have questions just because, like Eva said, we're still learning, and we're super grateful for all the knowledge that you all share. And I'm sure the questions that I've asked, and some of it, I'm not throwing Earl or Eva under the bus, I know that I've asked questions where you probably all are like, yeah, of course, that's what that means, or no, that's ridiculous. So thank you for your patience for all of us. We will continue to ask those questions because there is an intense level of interest in all of these grants, but thank you. So.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I agree. Thank you. I want to apologize for any questions that seemed out there for anyone. We're trying our best. And the following section F and G, I have no issues to go over with you. Those are just, you providing more information for your projects, which is fine. So if there's any more questions about these sections or anything else about the QPR in general, let us know. I think that sums up the examples because there wasn't too many issues with the reporting in my opinion. So
There's a comment in the chat from Jennifer Washburn. So this is a little specific, but what if there are 2 people convicted of a felony and a misdemeanor each for 17 and 18, but there aren't 4 people convicted? There's only 2 people with a charge of each level. Do I put 4 or 2 in the total for 17 and 18?
So, okay, so let me reread it. So 2 people are convicted of felony and misdemeanor to be reported in number 17 and 18, but there aren't 4 people convicted yet. So if you are you saying for this, sorry, Jennifer, are you saying for this specific example, or are you saying in general, how do we report? So are you just talking about the discrepancy between sentence type and then offense type? Is that what you mean?
No, I just want to know how I would report it because there isn't 4 people convicted of a felony and a misdemeanor. It's 2 people. Person A has a felony and a misdemeanor, and person B has a felony and misdemeanor. So it would be 2 and 2 in 17 and 18, but
okay.
It wouldn't be 4, it would be 2 people.
Right. Okay, so for number 17 and 18, you only report the person's highest. So if they both had a felony and a misdemeanor, you only report one person in felony twice. So we're only doing the highest conviction. So then it would be 2 people say in prison, and then 2 people in felony if they occurred in the same quarter.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. My head was hurting.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah, that was the easiest way we could figure. Now, that isn't to say that at your individual grantee levels, you couldn't be calculating and kind of for your local evaluation report, those individual details where in the end you could say, well, we sentenced 100 people to ORT charges, and then they individually had X amount of misdemeanors and felonies convicted amongst them and things like that. So those details, happy to hear from and hope you are collecting for your individual level grant evaluations.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other questions? Anybody else or comments? I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to fill these out and answering our questions. I know it's a lot, but you guys did a wonderful job. So thank you for taking that time to help us out.
Yes, and thank you, everyone. I would like to share that I'm almost done reviewing the baseline reports. And although we did go over the QPR report, much of the information we did cover does apply to the baseline in regard to empty cells or vague descriptions, things of that nature. And so I will be reaching out with clarifying questions and potential revision requests in the near future. Otherwise, if you don't hear from me, then no issues on our side.
I do have a quick question. Instead of putting the same information, like say for staffing, if we're complete and established, is it sufficient to just say in moving forward, there are no changes to this section from the previous reporting period? Or do you want the same information from the previous one and then something saying there's no changes from the last one?
So what you could do is say whatever the final status is and say there are no changes, or sorry, as of Q3, this status is complete, and then that narrative, and then you could just save that narrative for every time so that we know that nothing's changed and when the quarter it finished in.
Okay. So no need for the description to include, you know, I'm the vertical prosecutor. This is my CI. We haven't changed anything, blah, blah, blah.
Right. So whatever the last status was that it was completed, then say this is completed as of Q3.
Got it.
Yeah.
And do you know, I know there's maybe a handful of us who are the actual vertical prosecutor and the person who's doing the QPRs. Do you know if the vast majority of people responsible for the QPRs are also the vertical prosecutors?
That's a great question. We do not know that, but that would be great to hear from the group today. All we have is contact information, so we're not necessarily sure of both.
Okay.
Could anyone else jump in to say, what your position is and what, if you're also filling out the QPR? Let's see. Jennifer says.
I'm Fawn Smollett from Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office. I am the vertical prosecutor, and I also do handle quarterly progress report.
Great. Thank you, Fawn. And then Jennifer from Humboldt said she's the admin analyst, and she is assigned to do the QPR and the vertical prosecution team. Edward Liang, I believe is from Alameda. He supervises the vertical deputy district attorneys, but handles the QPRs. And then Renee her office is having a prosecutor assist with filling it out, but Renee is the analyst who compiles and fills in the stats. And then Jennifer says she is in charge of the LAP, LPR, the QPRs, and then the data collection. Ryan Ball is the investigations lieutenant and fills out the QPR. Oh, sorry, Edward is from La Santa Clara. apologies for that. And then Kamaria is the DDA, who is the project director, who also completes the QPRs, but I am not the DDA who handles the case. And then Brian is from Placer. Tina is from San Francisco. She's not a vertical prosecutor, but fills out the QPRs but does supervise the vertical ADA. And then Clint is a senior research analyst for Orange County, fills out the metrics, and Drew is the YOLO district attorney investigator and has the pleasure of filling these out. So lots of mixed statuses and positions for that, but thank you so much for all those who reported out. It's very helpful for us too. And also, we don't have an ETA right now, but it's nearly complete. We will be publishing a dashboard that encompasses all your data as a summary for across California, but then also it can be filtered by grantee. Once that's published online and been approved and all that, that will be shared with you all. So thank you again for allowing us to create such kind of a resource. And that's all that's in the chat, Eva.
All right, does anyone else have any more questions? I think we're good, I think, so.
Yep.
Please always, if any questions come up after, feel free to email me and my team anytime. We're here to answer any questions. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate everything that you're helping us out with.
All right, thank you. Take care, everyone.